Thank you for staying with Channel 1. This is Biz Check. My name is Betty Kiptum. Now, we'd like to have a conversation on matters environmental and social governance when it comes to business practices. And we will get an understanding of what exactly this means and why it is important for businesses to ensure that they are sustainable. And this conversation is happening with Collins Nkonge, who is an ESG and sustainability consultant. He is on my immediate left, as well as Bernard Kiragu, who is the executive director at SGB and Co Africa. Thank you very much for joining me, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Karibuni sana. Maybe we can just start with what is ESG, you know, for people to understand the basics. I'll start with you, Collins.
Thank you very much, Betty. I mean, ESG is basically it's a set of environmental and social governance metrics which are used to assess the sustainability performance either of an organization or even a country. You see what I mean? So for a sum up, you can say that ESG is a decision-making tool. It's an assessment tool, and at the same time, I would like to say it's a risk assessment tool at the same time. What I mean by this is there are specific environmental metrics that you encounter under ESG, social metrics and governance metrics. When I talk about this is, for example, under environmental issues, you'll find that we have initiatives like greenhouse gas emissions, how you are emitting, or rather, let me use the simplified word like polluting the environment. And then we have issues to do with biodiversity. When you hear people talking about biodiversity loss, how our economic activities are affecting our biodiversity, we have issues to do with waste management and even water usage. When you come to social issues, that's when you can talk of matters to do with your community engagement. How are you treating communities that are under your jurisdiction of operation? And then we have issues to do with employees' welfare. For instance, if I can give a very small example, is, for example, when you talk of maternity leave, right? So when it comes to ESG, you have to ask yourself, what more can you do, right? You have to, for example, provide feeding rooms for your employees. For those who don't have, you really need to take care of a lot of issues that are beyond what is envisaged in your contract. And then next, you can talk of matters to do with diversity, inclusion, and equity. And then under governance, you have matters to do with whistleblowing, transparency, disclosure. In that we say under governance, that's where the sustainability ownership takes place. So basically, environmental, social, and governance issues are elements that are supposed to actually guide institutions in achieving their sustainability.
Right.
Yeah.
And to bring you into the conversation, Bernard, why is this important?
Well, why is it important? There's no option really, because we need to discuss. You start a business, you want it to outlive you as a vision bearer. So you must set the framework that enables the sustainability, or rather future-proofing of the business. And that's why the G is important, because you set up the governance framework is very important. However, not to say that E and S are less important. None can exist in isolation, but the G is very important. We hold quarterly master classes, and one of the questions we always have is, what comes first between the E, the S, and the G? And the opinion is as varied and as wide as the classes we have, and there's no wrong answer. But from me as a governance practitioner, I feel the G is very important because it enables you as the leadership to set the right tone to how we're going to deal with all of these matters. But I'm very passionate about the S, which is not receiving the attention it deserves. We all know about the E. Everyone is currently talking about COP29 happening later in the year, where there's a lot of focus on the E. But the S is really what we all live. And very important because it talks about things like diversity, equity, and inclusion. Cuts across all organizations. And so there's no saying that ESG only applies to listed companies or the big companies. Cuts across all organizational setups. Yes.
And when you talk about these matters, ESG, you've said it does not just apply to the big guys, even SMEs, at any level really, they should be keen on it. Do you see this happening? Are people or are businesses taking ESG metrics up?
Actually, even before I come to your question, I would like to add to what Bernarda said.
Go ahead.
You asked why this is very important. I think every brand out there they are looking for a level of differentiation. You want to retain your top talents. You want to achieve your market share. You want your share price to be up. So these are few, or rather these are some of the quick advantages I can think of when you integrate ESG in your strategy. Mm-hmm. Just to go back to what you've asked is whether businesses, whether small or large, are taking up these initiatives. I will tell you for a fact that everybody is and should be considering ESG. Why am I saying this? We are moving into an era where investors and even customers are demanding sustainability-oriented businesses. For example, I'm foreseeing this in next 5 to 6 years to come. It will be very difficult for any organization to succeed in banking or to succeed in securing funding when you don't have anything to show as far as ESG integration is concerned. Mm-hmm. Because banks are the enablers of all these issues, right? Their investors and their funding partners are demanding for this, and they need to screen their books. So that means if we have to benefit from the banking sector as an organization, then we need to do this. But I like saying that we should not do this from a compliance perspective. Let's do it because we want to contribute and actually create positive impact, because I believe COVID-19 taught us a lesson. That if you relate very well with your community, then this makes sense. Let me give you a very good example, Betty. Let's look at the supply chain, for example, performance of an organization, right? There is what we call the supply chain code of conduct, whereby institutions are supposed to actually set aside initiatives, or rather supplying jobs for the young people, for the women, for the people with disability, and actually even outsourcing outside. But then what do you find? Very few organizations have these practices in place. But then assume you are an institution that actually obliges to these initiatives. What does that mean? You are really contributing to the economic development of not only the society you're living in, but the entire nation as a whole. Because what we are finding is, if businesses do not adjust to what the future holds, then they are bound to be flushed away by whatever is coming. For instance, if you talk on matters climate change, it's affecting everyone. And if you don't combat it, then it will be a problem. And I'll go back to the banking sector, for example. If the banking sector do not help for example, the agribusiness, they don't help those institutions in the agribusiness to combat climate change, it means the people in the agribusiness will not have any output any longer, right? And if the agribusiness people are out of business, then the banks are out of business. Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's interconnected. So everybody is supposed to be in this ship. Nobody should be left out, whether small or large.
Right, nobody should be left out.
Nobody should be left out.
Clearly, business is no longer just about the bottom line. It's about how
Exactly.
you achieve the bottom line.
Exactly.
So, as people who are in business, what have you seen in terms of uptake, considering that I'm sure ESG metrics and you know, having the sustainability reporting, it is an expense for a business. So what have you witnessed in that front, Bernard?
Well, I think you call it right, an expense. We see it as an investment.
Right.
One, I believe there is a business case for investing in the ESG practices. It pays back. You treat your employees right. I mean, they work very well. Treat your customers right. They're there with you, and they'll keep buying. So there is a business case, and I do not believe it affects negatively the profitability of businesses. Mm-hmm. Just that we have to play the long game and keep doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. I'd want to stick to local examples of who have been affected by poor social practices, which affect the market share. I think a few years ago we heard about what happened to Kakuzi, where an issue not to do with their business, really about an issue to do with the community, led to their main buyer refusing to accept their supplies. We have another instance where recently there were elections to do for tea factories, where a supplier, a key buyer also refuses to buy tea from the factories that are affected if certain individual is confirmed or elected as a director because of a past incident that happened.
Right.
So it is hitting us directly. Locally, we've seen even with this, the recent demonstrations we had, where certain service providers were being sort of blacklisted, or people wanted to walk away saying they denied us connectivity during these demonstrations, so we should walk with our feet. So we are living through that. We're living through that, and there's no going back. And yes, let's just do the right thing, and we'll get the benefits as corporates.
Right. Let me just take a quick break here. I'm informed that we need to go for a link that is happening on police reforms. Let's listen into that. And on matters of sustainability in business, with a focus on environmental and social as well as governance practices. And the conversation is with Collins Nkonge, who is an ESG and a sustainability consultant, as well as Bernard Kiragu, the executive director of SGB and Co Africa. When before we took that link, we were talking on matters of investing in ESG metrics, and Bernard, you were giving us your thoughts. I'd like to hear your thoughts, Collins, on that.
Actually, if you ask me, I would say ESG for me is not a leakage for any organization, but rather an injection.
Right.
What ESG does is, I mean, let's look at the benefit of integrating sustainability into your business. We are talking about matters brand reputation. We are talking about matters profitability and cost effectiveness. We are talking matters about achieving competitive advantage in the market. If you look at all these issues, actually what they do is they are an advantage to your bottom line. What they do is they actually add to your profitability. So if you ask me, is those organizations that do not invest in ESG are actually on the verge to being phased out of the market as compared to those who are integrating these initiatives. So for me, I think the investment, the benefit supersedes the investment value. Let me give you an example, or let me just give you a trend that is currently in the market as we speak. You find, for example, Betty, investors are requesting institutions to have chief sustainability officers in the organizations. Why are they saying this? It's because they want these initiatives carried all the way from the board level, so that there is ownership of these initiatives. Nobody wants sustainability in any organization to be considered as a box-ticking initiative. It really should be something that is contributing to the impact of whatever each and every organization or a country is doing. So for me, I think if an investor, or if I am an investor of an institution and I'm saying, for example, kindly let's consider these initiatives, then they should be to the benefit of my investment. So if you look at it, ESG and for example, the entire sustainability spectrum contribute to the profitability of any organization and cost-saving initiatives, rather than being a leakage to their books. So for me, that's my take.
Thank you. Bernard, you mentioned that you're very passionate about the S that is not given as much importance as the E and the G. When you talk about the social bit of it, is it CSR or is it beyond CSR?
Well, CSR was it many years ago. So we really need to look at entrenching other aspects of the S. That basically goes beyond CSR. Because CSR, what does it take? A visit to a children's home once a year for Christmas? How sustainable is that model? It is not. We want to urge organizations to really keep doing right. And simply dealing with the people, the communities whom you impact, and enabling them to have better living standards is really, really it. And the easiest way for organizations to look at what to adopt as practices is to look at sustainable development goals, and you'll get an idea of what you'd want to align. You want to align with as an organization. There are 17 SDGs, as they are called, developed by the United Nations, UN. So the issue is, from there you spot for choice. What is important to us, and what can we do about this? And we want to see You can start from, it's better to start from in, out. By addressing issues to do with what are the specific gender issues that we need to deal with. Are we balanced from a diversity perspective? And once you start addressing this, it will come naturally. Look at diversity even including with things to do with age, not just gender, and so that we really have an all-round approach to this. How are we treating our suppliers? Do we ensure that they are trying to adopt these good practices that we have as well? And that's really how it keeps going round and cascades throughout the organization backward and also into the customer facing front as well.
Right. When you're implementing these ESG metrics, especially when it comes to investors, when they want to, decide whether they'll put money into a business or not, there have to be some hard conversations and decisions that have to be made. Have you seen investors maybe blacklisting a certain industry or a certain group of people because of, how they conduct their business?
Actually, it's not only blacklisting or rather even losing investors. What happens is your biggest stakeholder is the customer. What do they or how do they perceive your organization? You're bringing up something that we call business cases in sustainability and ESG. And I'll give an example that I think everybody relates with. And if you can allow me, I can name the brand. It's Nike, for example, what they did the other day. Where you claim to be a very big supporter of sustainability, but then you're laying off the entire department, or rather half of the department that is handling sustainability. Where you want to greenwash yourself.
They're not here to defend themselves.
Yeah, they're not here to defend themselves, but it's in the public domain. Everybody can go and you can even go and check through your research. So investors indeed have actually pulled out of some of the businesses simply because they are not putting in the consideration that is needed when it comes to these ESG initiatives. The reason why they're doing this is because when we started this, we said ESG is a risk management tool. So if you don't include it in your business, then it means there are risks that you're not putting into consideration, and they might as well come to affect you in the future. Giving an example, right now, look at what is happening. The young people have started knowing what really they want in life. If we have an organization that doesn't consider the position of the young people in the operations, what this means is it will be in the books with the young people. I'm giving an example with when you produce a sustainability report, for instance, as Ben has said, it's very good to categorize your employees so that if I'm a young person and I want to join your organization, I want to know, do I fit in these organizations? It is narrowed down. For example, let me use a global standard, for example. I like GRI any day, anytime. For me, I call it the Bible of sustainability. If you look at its metrics, it really helps each and every level of stakeholder to make a decision based on what they want in a certain organization, especially on the on the social impact element. So for me, I believe not only investors, but every aspect of every stakeholder in any organization can make a very informed decision on an organization based on their performance. There was a local company that produced a sustainability report and said that the gender pay gap ratio was 50%. It brought an outcry. I believe you can imagine what that means. Male to female pay ratio is 50%. What that means is if a man is earning 100 bob, their lady colleagues are earning 50 shillings.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? That means all the top talents that are female will not want to be associated with that institution because they know when I'm going there, I won't get what I'm worth. But then I appreciate also at the same time organizations that are doing this because they are trying to own up and actually try to tell their publics that yes, we know this is a problem in institutions and we are working towards working on it. At the same time, you'll find organizations that have only one woman in their board. So this means that we have no one to represent female issues in that level of an organization. So Again, we appreciate institutions that are appreciating that, yes, we have a deficiency of this issue, but then we have put certain measures to mitigate this kind of a risk. Because what this means is we will be missing out on very many opportunities or benefit that comes with this level or rather class of people as far as our performance is concerned.
Right.
So that's basically what it means, missing and hitting on ESG as far as an organization performance is concerned.
Right. Bernard, any thoughts to add on that?
Simply say that one, investors will only want to come where they feel their money will earn them the due return. And how they check is really, one, looking at the governance structure, is it correct? Then look at the diversity elements. And then for environment, it's probably easier to look at what kind of impact are you having. Maybe not all of us, not all organizations will have an impact, but for banks, I think, which Collis is very passionate about, they'll come up with products that want to promote green investments, really as a contribution to sustainability. So it is a challenge and a call for all of us to look at aspects. There's so much we can do. So sadly, we are slow adopters of this, and it is really a call for us to not to wait for the regulators to come and tell us to do this report. Because there's so much we are doing. We just need to structure it correctly, and then we do it one organization at a time. Yes.
So as we come to a close of the conversation, gentlemen, I'll give each of you 2 minutes to give us your closing remarks. In there include the way forward for ESG reporting in businesses in Kenya. I'll start with you, Collins.
The way forward. For me, I don't think I would put it the way forward, but where to begin, because
where to begin?
This is what I would like to say when it comes to ESG and sustainability integration in any organization, that it's a step-by-step initiative. You need to appreciate that for you to get this right, you'll make mistakes, and you'll have to accept that it's a baby step. But then at the same time, a very important thing to talk about, or rather to mention in this, is innovation. It's very good for institutions to adopt tech solutions that can help them streamline their sustainability initiatives. I mean, when it comes to data collection, data evaluation, because continuity and compatibility of their reports is what matters. So when you're using old or rather spreadsheets to collect your data when it comes to sustainability, then it means in the future you're going to encounter very many problems as far as, tracking the continuity of your data is concerned. And I don't know why Bernard has not mentioned this, because when I was doing my research, I realized it's the only organization in this country that has a generative AI tool that helps organization in actually auto-drafting their report, which I was very happy about. What this means is sustainability is becoming a very cost-effective initiative for an organization if now we are having technologies that can help companies auto-draft their reports and actually predict their performance in the future. So for me, I would say let companies adopt very simple frameworks. For me, I can always recommend the Global Compact principles. You can start from there. The SDGs start from there, and if you're looking for a very good global framework, GRI is very good for banks. I know we have the TCFDs. So for me, I think let organizations start small. As they learn these, and everything will be right for everyone.
Start small, take it step by step. Exactly. Bernard?
Correct. The bit about tech, I was saving that for last. But yes, very important, because how this helps. We don't want to make ESG data collection and reporting a pain. So with tech, it will support organizations, and should help us with the adoption of ESG and sustainability reporting. So that is where we need to keep going. But it's important for us to enlighten everyone about ESG. People really are afraid of acronyms, and it's important that we just really demystify it. And that's my clarion call today. We're hoping that we'll be able to do this individual by individual, so that now we can develop a community or a society that embraces ESG and sustainability practices.
Awesome. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. That is Collins Nkonge, who is an ESG and sustainability consultant, as well as Bernard Kiragu, Executive Director at SGB and Co Africa. We have been talking about sustainable business practices and why it is important for businesses to not only look at the bottom line, but how it is achieved. Well, we want to take a quick break. When we come back, we will have a conversation on matters the public wage bill. Do stay with us.